The ousted Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has denied fleeing Afghanistan hours after it was confirmed that he has taken refuge in the UAE. Mr. Ghani said he had to leave Afghanistan to prevent bloodshed. The Taliban's been tightening its grip on power. Video posted on social media shows gunshots being fired at a protest against the use of the Taliban flag in Jalalabad. The British government's handling of the crisis has faced severe criticism in Parliament, but Boris Johnson said there was no appetite among NATO allies to keep troops in Afghanistan without US support. And the prosecution has made its opening statements at the trial of the American R&B singer R. Kelly at a US federal court. The prosecutor said the musician had targeted and exploited young girls and boys. R. Kelly denied any wrongdoing.
In Afghanistan, Taliban armed forces control the streets of Kabul on the group's third day in power. In Jalalabad, a local Afghan health official reports at least one person dead and 6 wounded in Taliban attacks on demonstrators there. In Haiti, deaths from Saturday's earthquake rise above 1,940. The Civil Protection Service says more than 9,000 people are injured and many others are missing. And Pope Francis is advising everyone to get COVID-19 vaccines. In a video message, Francis said that vaccines are safe, effective, and an act of love.
We start this hour in Afghanistan, where the Taliban appear to be speeding up efforts to establish a new government. The Taliban seized power as U.S. troops prepare to fully withdraw from the country later this month. Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid says there will soon be an agreement on establishing a new government. The Taliban's number 2 leader, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, has arrived in the southern city of Kandahar, apparently for talks with officials of the collapsed government. The Taliban are also in discussions in the capital Kabul with officials including the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation, Abdullah Abdullah, who led the peace process under the administration. In the meantime, First Vice President Amrullah Saleh has posted on Twitter that he's still in Afghanistan and declared himself the legitimate caretaker president as stipulated by the Constitution. He also urged people to resist the Taliban. But with the Taliban now in control of most of the country, including Kabul, it's unclear how much support Saleh can muster. Meanwhile, Washington says the international community will keep a close eye on human rights in Afghanistan.
What we expect from the Taliban going forward, that is something that will have to be watched and observed over time, whether in fact they are prepared to meet their obligations to the basic human rights and human dignity of people.
Jake Sullivan says the situation in Kabul is chaotic, adding that it's too early to say whether Washington could eventually recognize the Taliban as legitimate rulers. The White House says President Joe Biden spoke to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson by phone. They agreed to hold a virtual Group of 7 leaders meeting next week to discuss Afghanistan. On Tuesday, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said the EU is ready to talk to the Taliban. He added that the EU needs to prevent a potential refugee crisis. But he said dialogue would not mean the EU formally recognizes the Taliban regime. Meanwhile, Japan's foreign ministry says all 12 of the Japanese staff at the country's embassy in Kabul have been evacuated from Afghanistan. The embassy will operate from a temporary office in Istanbul, Turkey. Now to the latest on the coronavirus here in Japan. The country reported over 23,900 cases on Wednesday, the highest daily tally yet. The figure is up over 8,000 from the same day last week. 40 of the country's 47 prefectures now have infection rates exceeding 25 per 100,000. This puts them at stage 4 on the government's risk scale, which is the most serious level. The health ministry says 1,716 patients are now in serious condition. This marks a daily high for the 6th day in a row.
The virus is spreading on a scale that we have not experienced before. The medical system is severely strained, particularly in the greater Tokyo area.
Experts say the highly contagious Delta variant is fueling the current spread. According to the National Institute of Infectious Diseases, the variant now accounts for the vast majority of new cases across the country, including up to 98% in the Tokyo area and 99% in Okinawa. Health experts in Japan are calling on expectant mothers to get vaccinated against the coronavirus as quickly as possible, as they're at risk of developing serious symptoms. This comes after NHK learned that hundreds of pregnant women in Tokyo have been infected with the virus. The Japan Association of Obstetricians and Gynecologists says a total of 460 pregnant women in Tokyo were infected between April 2020 and last month, when nearly 100 were confirmed. This woman is 7 months pregnant. She says she was initially concerned about whether the vaccine could have an effect on her baby, but that changed after she was hospitalized with COVID-19.
I've refrained from going out as much as possible. I've sterilized and washed my hands, and I've worn a mask. But looking back, it would have been a lot better if I had gotten vaccinated.
Experts point out that pregnant women are more likely to develop serious symptoms, especially in the later stages. They recommend expectant mothers get vaccinated regardless of how far along they are in their pregnancy.
Pregnant women can get vaccinated at any time of their pregnancy. We would like them to get vaccinated along with their partners.
Professor Nakai says many medicines that would be part of treatment in the event of infection cannot be used during pregnancy. He says it's therefore crucial for pregnant women and their partners to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. The coronavirus continues to have a crushing effect on Japan's tourism industry. The number of foreign visitors in July ticked up due to the Tokyo Olympics, but was still just a fraction of the pre-pandemic figure. The Japan National Tourism Organization estimates the country received 51,100 visitors last month. That's a significant increase from approximately 3,700 during the same month last year. The boost was due to the arrival of athletes and officials from around the world for the Olympics. But compared to the same month in 2019, the number represents a 98.3% drop. The Japanese government has implemented tight entry restrictions to limit the spread of the coronavirus. This means the number of visitors is expected to decline again after the end of the Paralympics in September. Japan's exports surged in July, driven by automobile shipments to the United States. This marks a fifth straight month of year-on-year growth. The finance ministry said on Wednesday that exports stood at 7.3 trillion yen, or about $67 billion last month. That's up 37% from a year earlier in yen terms. The size of growth reflects the degree to which the coronavirus pandemic battered exports last year. But the July figure also topped pre-pandemic exports from the same month in 2019 by over 10%. It's the second highest total for July since comparable data became available in 1979. The jump was due to robust exports of cars to the U.S. and iron and steel products to South Korea. Japan's imports also soared in July, rising more than 28% to 6.9 trillion yen, or about $63 billion. It marks a sixth straight month of growth. This was due in large part to a surge in crude oil prices, which more than doubled from the same month last year, and imports of medicine were also up nearly 40%. The country's trade surplus stood at about 44 billion yen, or about $4 billion, ensuring the figure was in the black for the second straight month.